Welcome back. Week 11 waiver wires are on us. We've got you another batch of defensive linemen, linebackers, corners. So let's get to it. My main man, Kraig, who are we talking about at the linebacker position this week?
First one, we're going to go to the Green Bay Packers, who just beat my Cowboys. So thank you very much for that. But Isaiah McDuffie stepped into the Quay Walker role, with Quay Walker taking over for Devondre Campbell, who was out. He being McDuffie, ended up with an 82% snap share, his highest of the year, with 8 solos and 5 assists. This is really only a play if Devondre Campbell is out again, but with a short week, the Packers play the Titans on Thursday. I could see Campbell sitting out again, and, the Titans run the ball pretty much constantly, so this is going to be another great spot for him to rack up tackles if Campbell is out, and he is like under 1% owned pretty much on every platform. Guy that you had talked about a few years ago, finally showing up and doing some stuff, Sione Takitaki for the Browns. So Jacob Phillips is on IR, Anthony Walker's on IR, JOK has been out with a knee injury, and they do have Deion Jones. He's been around a 70% snap share. But over the past 3 weeks, Taki has had 19 solos, 12 assists, 3 tackles for a loss, a sack, and a forced fumble. He's been showing up for the Browns. They're going against the Bills this week. Those Bills are certainly going to be upset and wanting to assert their dominance over the Browns, which shouldn't be too difficult. So Browns will probably be on the field a lot. And that's another nice play. Jan Brown for the Raiders. We mentioned Blake Martinez, and he promptly retired last week, which thrust Jan Brown, who had been inactive, into a 100% snap share role against the Colts. 4 solos, 4 assists with a fumble recovery. They're facing Denver in week 11. The guy that's probably going to be on the field a lot. Might as well put him out there. That Raiders team isn't stopping anyone either, and might be a get right spot for the Broncos if they're going to have one.
As long as he doesn't retire.
Yeah, who knows? Another guy that's just based on injury stuff here. So Tremaine Edmonds left the game against the Vikings with a groin injury. Those things can be tricky to recover from. Tyrell Dodson is a guy that's under 1% rostered pretty much across the board as well. This past week, he only had 2 solos and 1 assist, which is a bit underwhelming. But when he had started for Edmonds earlier in the year, he ended up with an 84% snap share, 7 solos, 4 assists, and a sack against the Steelers. If Edmonds is out again, I like this play going against the Browns.
And updates on the injury front for Edmonds, there is no update, but those groin injuries can linger, like you said. But typically when you see a groin injury, it's either the guy's a game time decision all week, and then he either can do it or he can't do it. So that one's going to be a tough one for fantasy owners. The McDuffie one, Devondre Campbell, from what I was just reading, they don't expect him necessarily on the short weeks to be ready to roll. They were hoping he'd be ready last week, and he wasn't. So definitely both good plays to keep an eye on. Obviously, make sure you're being mindful, because with Green Bay on a short week, you may have to change your lineup up if Devondre Campbell can go. But if you can't, then McDuffie's a safe play. All right, for the defensive backs, what are we doing here?
One of them, we're going to go back into the Wayback Machine. Father Time has not yet caught up to Devin McCourt. He's had a 96.5% snap share over the 9 Patriots games this year, and he averages 4 solos and assists and about half a pass deflection. Like every other game, he's getting one of them. But this week, he's going against the Jets, who are 3rd in points allowed to opposing safeties. I think he's in a fine spot here to get you some bye-week production fill in. A guy that should be rostered across the board just more than he is based on what he's done is Kirby Joseph. We talked about him some this offseason once he got drafted, and you certainly liked him over on the lines. From week 7 on, he has had 5, 6, 10, and 7 combined tackles on a 91% snap share. That would be higher, but he did leave one game early due to an injury. They're going against the Giants, who are 10th in points allowed to opposing safety, so great spot and a great young guy who's producing. Another guy that's getting you all right production, this is in the line of Devin McCourty with more of a bye-week type fill-in. Nick Scott, safety for the Los Angeles Rams. He's had a 97% snap share on the year as one of their starters. He gets you about 4 solos and 2 assists a game, which, again, for bye-week production, fill-in for safeties, it's a nice floor. You should be fine if you need to just pick someone up and get a few tackles and be happy with that. And finally, Alante Taylor, he's a cornerback, New Orleans Saints. So he's got a 95.85% snap share over the past 4 games with at least 3 solos in a game. He's also averaging 1 pass deflection per game over that. So last week against the Steelers, he had 6 solos. Pittsburgh gives up the most points to opposing cornerbacks. This coming week, they're going against the Rams, who give up the 6th most points to opposing cornerbacks. So it's another really nice spot where he's probably going to beat that average, especially if who knows what's going on with the quarterback there. But if John Wolford
Mhm.
starts again too, even more opportunity with just passes probably not on target as much because they still just can't run the ball there with the Rams.
I know, it's crazy. Kirby Joseph is absolutely a perfect ad because they want to keep him in this defense and keep playing him because he needs to get development. They maybe didn't want to play him as soon as they did, but the injury to Tracy Walker early kind of thrust him into this role, and he's done well. He was player of the week 9, week 10, definitely came back down to earth, but facing Justin Fields, he can make you look silly from time to time, especially with missing reads and things like that. But Kirby Joseph is producing at a level for fantasy that you can consider him as a weekly starter if you needed the help. I love that play. Round it out. Let's talk defensive linemen. Who are we talking about here?
I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry, Kingsley. I should probably have some more respect for your name, but I have to look these up. And then
Barre. I thought
it's something like that, yeah. And he also goes by JJ, so I don't know if he's listed as that on some of the platforms because that's his nickname. But he's the edge rusher for the Packers opposite Preston Williams now with Rashawn Gary out. This past week, he had a 74.7% snap share, his highest on the year. He was again the starter. 3 solos, 2 assists, and a quarterback hit. Titans are top 3 in terms of quarterback pressures allowed compared to the number of times their quarterback goes back to pass. So they're allowing pressure when they have to pass. And if you're a belief in the get-right game that the Packers had, that Aaron Rodgers is talking up against the Cowboys, with that offense finally finding their groove, if they are able to do that against Tennessee, who's had a banged-up secondary, one of the guys we talked about last week, Christian Fulton, he went out with an injury and didn't do anything. So they could continue that and force the Titans to pass more than they want to, which really they don't want to pretty much at all. And that's going to allow more of those pressures. And you could be looking at sort of a breakout game for Kingsley as a pass rusher here. Jerry Hughes, mentioned with Devin McCourty, Father Time has forgotten him too. 34 is old for an NFL defensive lineman. He got a 61% snap share on the year with 17 solos, 6 assists. Okay, that's not great, but 9 tackles for a loss and 8 sacks. That's the most he's had for sacks in most of his entire career. He had 10 sacks back in 2014 with Buffalo. That's the next closest that he's been in the year's only like 2/3 done-ish. So he's certainly on a tear here with the Texans. He has at least 1 sack in 5 games, including all the past 3 games, and they're going against the Commanders, who give up the 6th most points for opposing defensive ends. So another great spot for Jerry, and he's 5% or less rostered. If you want a boom or bust play, sometimes we have to dig deep here. Yannick Ngakoue, we've mentioned him. He's the definition of boom or bust in my book. He's got 9 solos, 9 assists, 4 tackles for a loss, and 5.5 sacks. He either gets you a big play or he doesn't end up mattering. But he's got about a 71% snap share and at least half a sack in 6 out of 9 games. So generally, he's going to be getting you something. The Colts give up a lot of points to opposing defensive ends, which is good to see because that's who the Colts are playing. Excuse me, the Eagles give up whatever I was saying. Eagles are second in points allowed to opposing defensive end, who the Colts are playing. There you go, Kraig. But most of that's based off of tackles with how much they run, and Mike's not getting those tackles so much. So he's certainly in a great spot to get you more tackles than normal and get you a big play possibly by getting to the quarterback. But if he doesn't, he's probably not going to get you much. Again, it's a boom or bust play. He's going to be on the field with Pay injured, and Deo Odangbo's not doing much on the other side from defensive end. So if you want to take a shot, that's your boom or bust play of the week. And we're going back to the well for defensive tackles. So last week we had Kenny Clark. He had 2 solos, 2 assists, a tackle for a loss, and a sack against Dallas. So that one turned out pretty well if you were able to pick him up and play him. Going right back to defensive tackle going against the Cowboys, Harrison Smith of the Vikings. He's got a 63.37% snap share, 11 solos. Harrison Phillips. What did I say?
Harrison Smith.
It's the right team.
Minnesota Vikings.
Right? Yeah, right. Wrong position completely. Harrison Smith on the defensive line might not be as useful. Harrison Phillips, 11 solos, 17 assists, 2 tackles for a loss, 1.5 sacks, and a fumble recovery. Again, about a 63% snap share. It's the highest among the defensive linemen for the Vikings. He's probably not going to get you a sack or a tackle for a loss, but he certainly has a chance to rack up those tackles with the way that Cowboys interior line has been giving up points to defensive tackles. So another great spot, another guy that's getting you some tackles. Have at it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys as always. If you need more help, live help, rotoheat.com/Discord. We'll see you next week.